If you can't lead yourself, it's hard to lead others. They understand talent doesn't always win, right? So they understand hard work beats talent. And when you got 40 guys that we do are unbelievably talented, at some stage something's got to change a little bit. When I was refereeing and, there'd be a first penalty, you go, oh, here we go. And you could already see, oh, obviously this coach has bloody told them that I'm a useless prick and that. So, yeah, it was horrendous to referees, and I apologise to everyone to then ref and now to coach. It's hard not to. It's not a Fijian way to really open up around how they feel. I don't think I've heard any of our guys ever say no. So how do you ask do you understand how you're feeling and is everything good to say no, I need a bit of help here? That's pretty hard.
His guest is Glen Jackson, and Glen is having a remarkable rugby journey. He played as a first 5'8" for Bay of Plenty and the Chiefs in New Zealand before heading to Saracens in the UK to play 130 games, including Premiership Player of the Year in 2007, which is the very best award you can receive, I reckon. When he retired in 2010, he rocketed through the professional reffing ranks, working his way up to the very elite level, officiating over 100 first-class games, including 32 test matches. In 2015, he finished his professional refereeing and dove into pro coaching, where there isn't many coaches that can say they've played, coached and reffed at the very highest level. He is currently head coach of the Fijian Drua in Super Rugby, and with the way they play, this passionate, entertaining, they are everybody's second favourite team after their own. Glen Jackson, welcome to the Coaching Culture Podcast.
Thanks, Ben. Great to be here, mate. Big fan of your podcast. You learn a lot from other coaches, and I think it's the key to rugby is listening to what other people have to say about their environments, and it's a great way to learn from those people.
Cheers, Jacko. That's appreciated. And are you right just to segue into this? Because when you're listening to people like yourself and other coaches that have actually gone through all these stresses and strains and the learnings and the goods and the bad learning, it's such relevant stuff, I reckon, because there's nothing better than hearing from others that have gone through it, not just the theory, but what they're actually going through all the time, right? Is that what you get from it?
Oh, 100%, mate. I'll give it another yell. I think Rugby Unity with Eddie Jones and you are the two that I listen to, and it's two different sides. I think, that they really talk about the game of rugby, and you talk about what's behind the scenes of rugby and how you get the best out of people. And it's, like I said, it's an amazing to listen to how the game of rugby's changed and around how open people are. And I think it's not good if you're in professional. It's good if you're under sixes. It doesn't matter what grade you are, but you get a lot of people opening up now about how the environment runs and how their team runs, and it's only good for the game.
And you're right. Like, I've been so impressed about all the people that have come on are just so open. And we're talking like everybody on the show is professional rugby coach, and they're just sharing everything. Goods, bads. I think it's incredible. It's a testament to the game, do you reckon?
Yeah, well, look, I think we struggle as a game to understand. Well, no, I think that's opposite. The game is sometimes struggling. I think at the moment we're watching Test rugby and it's unreal. I think Super Rugby, I thought last year was really, really good. But we've certainly got a game of three sort of divisions at the moment. And the more people can share about and talk about it and make it a product that people want to listen to and watch, and it's the better for all of us. So I think we need to all understand that. We need to make the game attracted to everyone. And this Women's World Cup's been great at the moment, but I think like those tests in the weekend were teams are playing unreal, and it's awesome to watch and be part of.
Yeah, it is a joy, mate, and being able to do this and speak to great people like yourself, mate, is a real pleasure. And I think what I love out of it, mate, just to keep going down this track, is that there's coaches out there listening in small towns and little places. I think of the small town coach in Texas for some reason, with no access to anybody, and he gets to hear yourself and other great coaches just talk about their journey. I think that's just shows the global nature of this game, and it's a really cool thing to be part of.
Yeah, it is, and I hope it doesn't stop. I think it's, it's, like I said, it's so important for the growth of the game. You're fighting airtime, you're fighting everything with so many other sports and so many other things, So we've got to put our foot forward to try and stake a claim in what people will do with their time.
Stake a claim, I love it, mate. Right, Jacko, I'll start, mate, with the question we start with is, how do you define culture?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I love the answers that everyone gives on here. I think it's just creating an environment that people can grow. You got to understand your athletes and their strengths, and then try and help them reach their full potential. The hard thing around culture is as I said, listening to other podcasts like Eddie's. Rugby unity is you got to win as well. Like you've got to have results. It's easy to say that an environment wasn't where it was up to because results didn't go that well. And I've been in plenty of teams where we've had great culture and, we didn't quite get the wins that probably you hoped. I would definitely say last year in the Drua, that would be the case. I think we got better culture than anyone around. But when you don't quite get wins like we didn't, then you're always challenging it as your culture as good as it should be. And so that's the beauty of culture and the hard work of coaching is trying to get that balance of having an environment that people grow to their full potential. But also at the end of the day, you got to get the wins as well.
Yeah. And well, when you're talking about these results, do you, obviously not everyone can win every game, right? Like, how do you have any sort of realistic ways of defining what a good result would look like for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question because, this is essentially us. We've had 3 years. Like our first year, we were in Lennox Head in Australia in COVID. You may as well put a line through that. So for 3 years and making quarterfinals on a competition that probably didn't really stack up to making quarterfinals. Last year was our first year that, ideally quarterfinals would have been good, but they went to, as you know, to 6. And so quarterfinals for us would have been success. And then we lose 2 games out of the first 3 on the hooter, and then you're chasing, So that really challenges your culture and your athletes. But as I said, I think as long as we can create an environment that they're understanding their strengths and then can reach their full potential, then I think you're going the right way. I think some things I tried to do last year with each player being a leader of themselves instead of actually having a full leadership group, because I didn't really believe we had in 3 years the right leaders to take our team forward. Now, that was probably a mistake from me, but it was something I was willing to challenge, because I think if you can't lead yourself, it's hard to lead others. And I didn't want to put the pressure on a leadership group to try and lead our team. That's what we're here for. And I learned from that. I think this year we've got some great leaders, and so we'll go back to having a bit of a leadership group. But again, I thought having the culture of leading yourself is what you can do to get better results. So yeah, long-winded answer, but it wasn't a pass mark last year. So for us is probably more wins than losses is where we need to be. And as you know, mate, Fiji's full noise rugby. So you go from having a quarterfinal to not. Again, that's results, and that's where you're based on, and that's where the pressure comes on players and staff.
Yeah, that's right. Mate, now, just to dive into that a little bit, the culture of leading yourself as a culture fit for a team is awesome, each player being the leader of themselves. What sort of specific things did you do to help individuals grow their leadership?
Again, 3 years into Super Rugby is tough. You look at some teams that have been there for 20 years. We're coming into our 30th year. Not many teams make playoff footy. So our culture, or Fiji culture, is unreal. Right? You can't understand the importance of religion, faith, and that creates the culture. I obviously listened to Mups on you recently, and he knows all about it. We know about it. I've been lucky enough to be with the national team for 5 years, and so I know the Fijian culture is strong. Get that traditional culture into professional culture is a balance, is a fine balance of understanding that now you're a professional rugby player. But again, a lot of these guys have come straight from a COVID schooling to not, missing important years of school to then professional rugby and being on billboards around Fiji. So just needed to make sure they could, like I said, lead themselves before trying to lead a whole rugby team. Frank Lamarty, for me, is one of our genuine leaders. We lost him after 3 weeks, so we sort of lost our captain, which then makes it even a little bit harder. So we're trying to put a lot of time into it. I broke the teams into a time sort of a framework, which was togetherness, investment, memories, and enthusiasm, and they had to try and look after all those 4 bits of what I see as important of rugby. And again, I'll put it down. The results were in our way, but I thought we had a great bunch of human beings that loved playing footy, loved the way they played, and so that was a success. That side of things has always been a success. It's just now trying to push that into a professional environment of results.
Yeah. What were those 4 things again, Jacko? Togetherness was the first one?
Yeah, togetherness, I guess we just that was a pretty easy one, but we broke team into 4 groups. One was togetherness. One was investment, so your investment of being your time when you're here. I wanted memories. Memories for me is all about rugby. So, what do we do off the field? How do you create memories when you're travelling? And then being enthusiastic. So that was our time. It was time 3rd year into apprenticeship. Essentially, now's our time to step up. And like I said, looking back, first year head coach. Yeah, there's certainly some things that I would do again, and one of them would be to form, an actual leadership group instead of. Maybe we went too quickly into the individual sort of leader. But I still think, looking at this year, we've brought in some good leaders and that can help some of the stuff we did last year into this year.
Oh, I love it, mate. I love that phrase, how to create memories. I think it's a really nice perspective to always come back to is the memories you're making right now, what are they? It's powerful, right?
Yeah, well, mate, you, myself, all those boys, we did it for a reason. Yeah, you did it because you got paid eventually, but it was that because you got good mates and you sit down having a beer and you talk about the great times. Not often you talk about the game footy. It's about the memories that you had when you're doing that. And I want to make sure our boys do the same. There's a lot of pressure on our young men in Fiji to perform. I'd hate for them to finish. We're losing 6 of our good players to France this year. Maybe the pressure was too much here, and it's easier to go to France and get away from the things. With the understanding of pressure, you just also want to make sure you're creating some good memories out of how you finish your rugby, your time with the game.
Yeah. Is that a real thing in Fiji? That's part of that environment where it's actually, to a lot of people that don't know Fijian rugby, it is all in. Like if you're playing for the Drua, you are the highest profile person in the country. Is it that? And the pressure on young athletes coming through is immense, right?
Massive, mate. And we're trying to do a lot of work with that, but that's difficult in any situation. But it's if you look at the All Blacks now, it's the pressure. We would probably be reasonably similar with the amount of pressure. Social media is massive over here. Not performing or, probably not seen as what they should be doing on and off the field, then the pressures come on. And again, these are young men who have missed a lot of schooling through that COVID period. So we're just making sure everyone's in I go back to it, into an environment that they can get their full potential. And it's a safe one that they feel comfortable coming to work and enjoying it.
It's fascinating, man. It's absolutely fascinating. I think it's important just to dive a little bit into that one where you talked about that balance between the demands of professional rugby and actually the cultural piece. Because Fijian, the culture is fantastic. Would you be able to just sort of, where does it conflict, like the natural style with the demands of a structured professional system? What's the dynamic there like?
Well, it's very family-orientated, faith, great sessions around a carver bowl, big talana, talking sessions. You get all that, which is fantastic, and you want that, into a very quick, do-it-now process of winning rugby. How do you get a week right? How do you then take away distractions of the family and the carver bowl? There's a huge change or element of speed around traditional culture and professional culture in Fiji. And I think our boys, you go overseas and there's Fijians everywhere. And it's the great thing about it. We don't want to turn that away, because I think the Drua is the best-selling Super Rugby jersey by 40% the last 3 years.
Is that right?
It's really important that we understand this is why people like the Drua, and this is why you're here. So you never ever want to get away from the traditional culture, but the speed of professional culture means that there isn't that time, especially in Super Rugby. It's a quick dash. It's a sprint. It's not like when we played in the UK, you could sort of limp to Christmas and then you change your sort of tactics and you can come all right. This is done and dusted in real quick time. So it's just making sure the boys understand that. Like I said, we don't want to go away from what makes them unbelievably great human beings. But, how do you then make them superstar all the time in rugby, not just some of the times?
You wouldn't. When you say you take away distractions, do you actually take away, or do you almost dive into them a little bit more, like double down on how good the family is, how good strong the faith is, how important the traditions are? Do you sort of acknowledge that and put it front of mind, as opposed to take it away? Yeah.
You'd never take away what is important to them. Last year was my first year as a head coach. We went up to Kandavu on a boat, got to this magic island, no power. We had a week up there. Everyone was saying we're crazy. It was cyclone season. It was unreal. It was so good to the people of Kandavu looked after us extremely well, and to bring the Drua which they only see on a little TV that they try and have to run up the top of the hill to get a reception, to bring the boys there. We've got about 8 guys, I think 9 guys from Kandavu, 2 of them had never been there, so it was like, that's important. It's important to connect with to the country. It's important to understand what it means to be for the Drua, but then like I said, I feel sorry at times when things don't quite go right and they expect us to win, which is good. That's why, like I said, if you're not selling your jerseys or you're not watched, then there's something wrong as well. So it's just that balance of getting that right.
How do you get on with that sort of underlying pressure to win games of rugby? How does that affect you as a coach? Does it weigh on you?
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, you're here to win. I mean, there's no doubt. But I think Eddie said on a great thing. If you win a premiership in any coaching career, you're doing a great job. He talked about people that go from one great environment. Scott as a good example. He wins everything under the Crusaders thing, and you go to a different environment. So winning is continually the pressure of coaching, and that weighs on us. But you can't allow that to show in the team. And we've got a great bunch of men that every single day they turn up, they'll greet and say hello. We have a lot to our pre-session leading into our meetings, and it's really important. Sing every day. We've got a great facility here. We're very lucky with that. The boys love being here. Well looked after, fed well. Yeah, so all that is great. But, the pressure of winning is there. And that's, I wouldn't be in this game still if I didn't understand that.
Yes, that's right. And so I think it's important too that you understand some of those things you talked about, like the prayer, the need for singing, because if you didn't understand that and you pulled back on that sort of stuff, it wouldn't go down well, will it, if you take away some of those strongly etched traditions for a culture like the Fijians?
No way. And, I don't know if people know, but the Drua is 100% Fijian. First year we were allowed, I think, 1 or 2 foreigners if we didn't have a spot. So we've been completely in full utter Fijian team. We're only allowed to have Fijians in our team, which is fantastic. So you would never take away the traditional culture of Fiji and what it's about to be Fijian. We have myself, Tim Sampson, Chris Gibbs and Greg Fleming with the rest of our management is all Fijian. And so we would never come in here and ever think that this is not the way forward. Never, ever. It's part of the culture, as I said. It's just now getting that professional and traditional culture and that balance right.
Have you changed on your balance? You've been in Fiji a while now. Has that changed from when you first came in with maybe what you thought at the start to where that's evolved to?
No, I was lucky. When Vern Cotter coached Fiji, he brought me in as assistant coach. This was before the Drua. So I'd sort of been with the national team before the Drua. And then obviously going to the World Cup with Simon Raluni and understanding him taking us to the quarterfinal, nearly winning a quarterfinal. You sort of understood how he did it and how the culture aspect doesn't really change. Yeah, the one thing we had in that national team is we had some really strong leaders who played overseas. And, that's where we're starting to bring Fijians back from overseas for that exact reason, that I think I'm never, ever going to stop one of our boys going overseas. I think it's important when they decide it's time to go, that they go, but the door will always be open to bring Fijians back. And I'm certainly in a place that you learn, as you and I have, where, you learn a lot more when you go overseas than you do just buried in your own country. And at times you go and you think you can change it, but you realise that that's the way things are run, and what you can bring back from overseas and any sort of organisation back into the Drua is going to be fantastic for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's such a good thing. And the more you move around, the more you get exposed to that different ways of thinking and doing, and it's wonderful for people. But you talked about leadership, mate, and you talked about Frank earlier. What is it about these key players coming back? What do they do to a culture and environment of a team when you get such good athletes and leaders back into the mix? What is it that they bring to your environment? How do you nurture that?
Yeah, look, Frank has done, Rebels, Northampton, so he's done a bit of travelling. For me, Frank leads for what he is. He is unbelievable. He's just had a shoulder rehab, so that's why he was out for the whole year, but he just ran a 4:40, Bronco. So that he shows what it means to be fit and 100% on. Great man, pulls teams together. Manasa Mataali, we're bringing him across, so he's Crusader and Chief, and he's super excited to come back home. Isaac Fine's coming from the Western Four, so, another guy that's played for Australia, but proud Fijian that wants to come home. We're bringing Timo, who's been unbelievable, played Northampton just in the finals, so he's coming back and will be a great leader. So we're bringing some good guys back in key positions too. And we all know, when you get the spine of your team pretty strong, that the rest of the boys will follow. And there were guys that were possibly going to go overseas that we did well to keep. So I think the balance this year would be the first year I reckon we've generally got a good leadership. Penny Ravai's been unbelievable for us around what he brought back from the Reds from overseas as well. So these are genuine guys that are so proud to come back and play for the Drua, but to have watched from afar, now they want to be involved, so it's great.
How do you, like with some of those players that have been developed overseas and they're coming back, how do you bridge those different pathways they've had into one unified culture, which is the Drua?
Again, mate, it really is an easy bit. I don't want to overstate. Fijian just slipping back into Fiji culture is awesome. What these guys will bring is that everyone talks about the most talented team. They understand talent doesn't always win, right? So they understand hard work beats talent. And when you got 40 guys that we do are unbelievably talented, at some stage something's got to change a little bit. Hence why they're everyone's second favourite team, because they score some amazing tries and amazing to watch. And like last year, I reckon we were playing, I can't remember we were playing, there was a chip kick and Chris Gibbs was next to me going, oh man, and I said, this will work out. Sure enough, we score, so that sort of stuff is why I think the Drua brand is so good. Like it's great to watch. I will never take that away from I want to make sure we play like a Fijian. Simon brought that into the World Cup. We don't want to take the DNA of what makes the Drua great. And it's probably frustrating at times, but that's the way we want to play. That's what keeps our players engaged. And but to do it, it's also a lot of hard work. And, our boys are here training bloody hard at the moment. So it's good. And obviously the Fijians are playing Test footy today, which is half our team or more. 20-odd guys playing Test rugby, which is outstanding and shows that the Drua is working towards the national team.
Yeah, I love that phrase that talent doesn't always win. That's exactly right. The most talented team doesn't necessarily win, but the other aspect is just driving that hard work, those standards, those coming together aspects. That they're the big ones for improving the ability of the talent involved.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. And our biggest thing everyone knows is on the road. Like we're pretty good at home. I actually don't think it's too far away. We just need to win one and the snowball will roll on. But it's just trying to get that first one.
What's the hang up on the road, you reckon? What is it about that? Is it just that the home ground is so awesome?
Honestly, it's a hotel. A lot of these boys come and still live in the village, and it's great life, and living's reasonably comfortable, reasonably easy. And you go to a hotel, you got these bloody big beds and the food's out the gate and the family that they haven't seen for a long time, so the outside environment. We lost to the Hurricanes last play and then we lost to the Waratahs last play. So those two were our first two away games that we tried to change things up. And I think if we'd won one of those, if not both, that would have changed the whole year. People talk about it a lot, so of course it's in everyone's back of their mind, and we don't try and talk about it a lot because I honestly think it's, like I said, it's just that close. The home ground advantage, I know teams don't like coming and playing daytime here. We hear a lot of bloody coaches moaning about it and trying to change draws and whatnot, but that's the beauty of Super Rugby. Perth's not much hotter, and Perth seems to win a lot of their games and struggle on the road too. So it's a balance of just when we get to a place, how do we get it right and make sure the environment's comfortable enough to get a victory.
You'd always test different things out when you go on the road. You go, right, let's see if this psychology works or this little tweak makes a difference. Are you constantly doing that when you're going away?
Yeah, we have. We went obviously 2 days before, then we tried a day before. Again, I think with the people that were brought in who are used to travelling, and again, we probably didn't do enough work with our young men who had never, I think Tani Alarakura, who's now played for Fiji, and when we called him, he'd never been on a plane. So it was the first home away game, which was Moana. We took him away. He'd not only not been overseas, he'd never been on a plane. So here's a kid that has come out of Natandola sort of villages and brought him in, and you're thinking, mate, you'll be right. He's footy, let's just go. And the kid's going, well, shit, this is my first time on a plane, first time in a hotel, and first time in a buffet and first time everything. And you're sort of thinking, oh, geez, maybe we missed of what we could do. We're excited that we're going to play the Chiefs in Tauranga pre-season. It's the first time we're going to go on the road for pre-season to New Zealand. It's awesome that the Chiefs have accepted us to go over there. So we'll spend a week over there, and that's something different to try and encourage. It's okay leaving win.
Oh, that's a cool little adjustment. So you've acknowledged that that's the little piece which is the problem, and then you've set it up as a learning experience. And in the pre-season, where ultimately it doesn't matter wins or losses, that's the learning to get used to travelling, being on the road, almost education piece around the point that you want to get better at.
Yeah, we'll see how it works, mate.
But it is a really awesome thing you acknowledge, that you've got, like, the better you know your players, I guess, and your environment, that you know that this guy's hasn't done any of this stuff. So the fact that you're aware of it and you go, oh, okay, right, it just highlights those little bits which actually are important, because if you expect him just to know how to do all the stuff and prepare properly, but he's probably more distracted by the plane ride, let alone to think about the moves he's got to do, because this is a whole new novel experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our boys, mate, they're just such great men to coach, really good. But to try and really get how they're thinking, I think it's not a Fijian way to really open up around how they feel. I don't think I've heard any of our guys ever say no. So how do you ask, do you understand how you're feeling and is everything good? To say no, I need a bit of help here. That's pretty hard. So again, that environment for growth, I just want to make sure everyone, when they turn up, the boys turn up, they feel so comfortable, like that is family, that we truly understand how they are feeling and how they go. And like I said, I feel unbelievably privileged to be part of this organisation and dealing with these, what we have now, 45 athletes, and making sure they reach their full potential. And that's all we can ask for.
How do you get through to someone that never says no or tells you how they're really feeling?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, I'd say Mups talked about you got to understand where they're from, their family, and their standing in the village, is really important as well, whether they're a ratu, a chief, or a mata, a spokesman, or a bati, a protector. So where they sit, there's fishermen. Their environment and their standing in their village is still important part of where they're from. The confederacies, 3 confederacies which run the whole country. So it's understanding all of that. Even one tribe to the next tribe can't eat fish unless someone allows them, and all that stuff that you learn from how amazing this place is, and the understanding of their culture is so awesome. And if you sort of understand that, that's a lot of help from the staff here. We've got Master Nathar, who's now gone to the GM of Fiji Rugby, but he was our trainer. He took the Fijian boys to 2 golds as a trainer. He was a massive help to me to understand all that culture and how you get through it. But I don't think it matters if you're in the Hurricanes, the Chiefs, Saracens, a referee. If you truly want to help someone and they understand that's how you get to really help them. I'd hope everyone thinks that it's a pretty safe environment here, and that they can, when they're ready, speak up if they've got issues.
If you truly want to help someone and they can see that, that's the cool bit, isn't it? If they can see and feel that you genuinely want to help, that's the key right there, isn't it?
It is the key, and even how we've set up our offices here. Like, is that right? Do we get to see everyone, greet everyone every morning? It's a massive thing for me. I know. Even back, I know everyone does it now, but I think Vern Cotter and Joe Schmidt, when we were at the Bay, it was a massive thing that you greeted every single person. You talk to them before you talk about rugby. And if you're doing that every morning, and you're having a talana around nothing but rugby, or how's the family, like we hear it a lot on your show, just get to know the athlete, and I'm sure that will make people feel like a trust environment.
Yeah. Oh, man, I'm a massive believer that it's the invisible part which actually leads on to the things that you're all there to do, which is winning games of rugby. But if people can feel it, they just, I actually heard the other day, Jacko, that there's actually a part of your brain that I think it's the prefrontal cortex, which actually, if that's where the psychological safety bit comes in. So if it's actually activates when you feel safe in a place through connection and whatnot, this part of the brain activates, which then opens up the ability to learn better, to be more motivation, as opposed to other parts which do the opposite. So if your brain's firing up there because you feel psychologically safe through trust and the stuff that you talked about, then it actually leads into better learning on the other side of things as well, which I think is a cool thing just to understand as a coach, that there's actually a bit of biology and not just psychology involved in that.
Yeah, that's probably why I've got no hair, mate. So hopefully that's the other. I think the other thing is then the other side, like is then when you have to step up, when you have to then confront, when things aren't right. And so I think they know you're coming from the right place, and then it's time to put your foot down and then say, well, this is unacceptable. This is not what we're about, which we have to do. And you're doing it again from the right place because, you don't want, if someone's not living to their full potential and you're bringing their team down, it's an important part of it as well. You can't just slide through it. Being coached by Eddie Jones, I love what Eddie does, and that's his strength. I believe that he definitely brings you on the ride, but when you're not in the right place, you get told that, and I think that's one of his greatest strengths, as well as Vern Cotter, and Joe Schmidt, all the good ones that I've been coached with. They make you feel comfortable, but when it's not right, it's not right, and that's as important as the other side as well.
I think that's a really good point, Jacko, to acknowledge that when we're talking about this cultural piece, whilst we want the environment good, as the head of that environment, it's like the parent in a family. When it comes to a serious matter that you've got to put the foot down, you're putting the foot down hard because of what you want from that environment. If one of my children acting in a way which is not congruent with good values, man, they'll get it. They'll cop it if they're being a dick to someone or not behaving in a way. Of course, we're not saying that that's not going to happen. I think that's the important distinction to make when we're talking about culture. To put people in their place if they're out of line is a big part of that role, isn't it? Not just the making them feel good, but also pulling them up when behaviour's not right.
Yeah, and that was the hardest thing, I'd say, for me. Being an assistant coach, where you don't really have to worry about that. Everyone's sort of mate, to first year of head coach, and there were times when, probably could have done it better. That was good learning. I've had
What sort of times, Jacko? You got
Oh, just even been, sort of late and I also understand it's hard sometimes to get a taxi in Fiji and not everyone has a car, and you sort of just allow that versus, that's not acceptable. Little things and there's always, we didn't have too many massive things, but, it's certainly, it was a good learning. I think having I had dinner with Vern talking about, what, obviously his experience here and then my experience there, he said, well, I know you've just had 3 to 5 years under your belt in 1 year, so you don't always get everything you've got in first year of coaching, so good luck. Keep moving forward.
Mate, the wisdom of some of those fellas is just awesome, isn't it? It's lovely. Now, Jacko, if we're going to divulge to a bit of you now, we're talking about some of your experiences and your learnings just then, but you've had a ride to professional coaching, which is like it's had a massive detour in the middle with, you did 5 years of professional refereeing. So you played an epic career yourself as a first 5'8", running the game for some of the top teams, Saracens, Chiefs, for example. And then you went into 5 years where you officiated 100 games, 32 test matches in 5 years. So you just rocketed through the refereeing ranks. What brought that about? And what was the value you got out of that experience in your life?
Look, I've sort of finished Saracens. Saracens was a great understanding of environment and culture. At times, that culture was horrendous. But
in what way?
The setup, we had 2 changing sheds at training, and straight away, you have clicks over here. I don't know if you know, Black Friday we call it. I think 15 guys lost their jobs. Brought in, Brendan Venter took over. Now Brendan's a great coach, but did things differently. We had a South African takeover. Eddie was there. Eddie moved on. My first year we had 4 head coaches. Where do I start? It was a genuine, sideshow. But at the end of it, my last game was a final, and we lost that. And then Sarries carried on to be what they are. So the learning of probably some of those cultures not being well run, but then also victory, sort of, helps the culture. And that's what I started with. I think, winning creates a pretty good culture. You probably asked me at the end of round, what's the thing? I think winning at the end of the day in professional sport helps every culture. Losing just empathise if it's not going that real good. But then finishing at Saracens, I'd sort of had 12 years professional rugby, and I'd had enough of team. And by the time I was finishing, you were getting told what to do, when to do it. And when we started, you had to look after yourself, go back to understanding your own self. But then sort of by then it was, you end up getting 2 managers, another few coaches. And for me, from where I'd started and what I loved about it, you had to look after yourself. So Eddie, I had a nice opportunity to go to Suntory with Eddie for another year and go into the coaching role. I just thought, I always wanted to be a coach, but I just thought trying something different where you're essentially an individual in a sport that's rugby was very hard. The reffing was an opportunity that New Zealand put together. It was a big punt, mate. Like, coming home for 20 cents versus going to Suntory for more money than Saracens. It was a stressful punt, but it was one that I really wanted to try, and mate, I loved it. It was a huge, awesome part of being a referee, trying to help their culture. I think it was a very individual, and it is an individual idea of what you're doing in reffing, but I think you had to have a good culture around it because, as everyone knows, it's brutally tough if you get it wrong. And if you haven't got genuine people in the organisation that actually care about you, then you don't know if they've got your back or not, even though you are out there by yourself. So I really enjoyed working with the likes of, Wayne Barnes, Nigel Jones, and the greats of the reffing, but also they didn't really understand team culture as well because they'd always done reffing. So it was part of Lyndon Bray was very good at that as well. So trying to get that sort of culture through the reffing, I really enjoyed. And then my hip gave way, mate, so I had to have an artificial hip, and then VC, Vern took over Fiji. So it was just I was very lucky in terms of transition and what I would like to do, and what worked out was nice.
Artificial hip?
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
Gee.
So it's good.
Is that what ended the? Because you obviously have to be super fit to be a ref. Is that what ended it for you? That just couldn't.
Yeah, I missed out on the 2019 World Cup in Japan, which I was pretty gutted with. Well, I was super gutted. That was my goal when I started. I was lucky I went to the 2015 World Cup. Again, to have a phone call from Michael Checo, who was very hard to ref, to say, I can't believe you're not there, shows you again the game, something like that. He admitted it when I first answered the call. He said, mate, I don't even know why I'm ringing you, but I just want to let you know I can't believe you're not there. And then my hip just gave way. I was running and I was in surgery a couple of weeks later. So sort of probably was a bit of a blessing, I suppose, that otherwise I would have had another year and a half of reffing instead of just lucky enough to get picked up by, like I said, Vern into this great country that I'm still at.
And what did you take away from that? Like, I know off air you were talking about some experience you had dealing with a lot of coaches at World Cups. How did sort of those conversations help your coaching when you did transition?
Well, first of all, it's just mostly for referees to understand what coaches go through, and I don't think they always understood that. At the top of the game, the pressure of winning and performing is out the gate, and it can always be a referee's fault. And I was sort of on the refereeing side saying, well, what do we do to help this? How do we have good open communication to a coach? Don't be afraid to say you're wrong. That puts out a lot of steam if you try and defend what you're doing. And I think we changed the way we reviewed in refereeing around that and tried to be a little bit more open around what coaches got. But then to go to the World Cup and as a coach, we played Wales, and Matt Carley, who I'd lucky enough ref for a long time. We didn't have a good game. He got destroyed in the media, and I just sent him a message going, mate, I understand where you come from. And funnily enough, I was in a lift 2 weeks later, still at the World Cup, and Matt Carley's in the door, and he was like, mate, I just want to say thanks, for what it meant for you not blowing up. Because, we possibly could have won that game, and we didn't, and you're pissed off and you're angry. I'm the most angry when it happens right there, but straight after the game, I try to still now go and have a beer with the referee and change sheet after every game, So it's to understand we're all still part of this game and we love the game. It's not everyone's making the game correct all the time. There's always mistakes. Doesn't matter if you're a ref or a coach or you play it. So, at the end of the day, you can blow up and the king of blow-ups. But then after the game, it's, mate, let's have a beer and create memories.
What would you suggest to coaches at any level that's dealing with a referee before a game or even during a game? What's some good takeaways that, as a coach, you can be better at when dealing with referees, which will help the relationship and the values of the game go well with the coach-refereeing relationship?
Well, look, first of all, for a referee, don't be in it. For me, I hope Paul Williams doesn't mind, James Dolman too. I think when they started, it was a bit of it was a job, maybe a little bit not glamour, that's the wrong word, but, you're in the middle of a rugby field. I think both of those guys are outstanding refs now, and it's not about them, it's about what they do on the field. And I think those two are great examples of understanding why they're in the game. They're in the game to serve the game. They're not in the game to be the game. And I think, that's number one. So the referee's got that side. To deal with coaches, I think coaching, one of the great things is can talk a referee about what they're doing this week. Is there a line out that they need to be careful of for their positioning? If you're helping the referee around understanding what your team's trying to do, we're going to do a lot of overthrows this week, so just be careful of your positioning at the back. Straight away, you're giving them a little bit of your intel, but you do it to help them. So there's nothing worse than a referee standing 18 metres at the back of the line out. You throw it over and you got bloody a Fijian running through that channel and, like in the Hurricanes trying to defend it, you're in all of a sudden a massive position, and out of it, you probably get lost for the next three phases. A decision could be made because you're in a bad position. A coach helping them say, this is what we're going to do on the first line out, just maybe stay at the front, is going to help your positioning. And if you're doing that instead of trying to talk about the opposition and whatnot, then you've got a pretty good opportunity, I think, at the end of the game to say, oh, mate, I thought you refed well. Probably a positional stuff that you could have got better, or coaches are super, super understanding of what the game needs and what they want. So help the referee who's trying to just manage it.
What about the blow-ups afterwards, mate? If you're the king of blow-ups, how do you what would you suggest about the blow-ups? Because a lot of coaches across all grades are into the referees, and that's quite universal. What's the flow-on effect to that, mate? Like when coaches are into the referees after games, particularly.
Yeah, it's just there's no place for it. Well, my blow up, it would be blow up then and there. I could say anything right then and there. It's not to the referee. It's just a blow up as it happens, and you can get over it. I tend to get over it quickly because I guess I know what the referee's going through. So the idea is hopefully that you can have your blow up, and then but at the end of the game, if you're then calm and can question, a couple of decisions or what you want to do, if you're calm, then you're going to get a reasonably calm answer. I think if you feel like if you're in the wrong place to go and have a chat to someone, then it's probably not the right thing. So again, you talk about it, your culture. If you want to get an answer, you don't go and don't really know the bloke and then go straight to steamroll effect. You're not going to get an answer that you want, are you? And that's even going to fuel the fire. So it's not easy. Our game's super complex, super hard. I know young kids' games are hard. With the TMO involvement and everything involved, it's a tough game to ref, and it's a tough game to coach and play.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a soft spot for referees because I've seen a couple of young referees get really lose themselves. Like, in club stuff where you get some young kids, 20 years old, refereeing games, and they've been blown up at, and they don't recover from it. Like, you forget sometimes that coaches are generally older, and then they're blowing up at a younger kid. And I've always had a little bit of, like, why would you do that to someone? They're volunteering their time most of the time. And there's a sentiment around that which I think is harsh. What I've also seen, Jacko, is when a coach, particularly the head coach, acts in a certain way and blames referees for the result, then it filters down to the players. And the amount of times I've heard young kids talking about the first thing, how was the game? They go, oh, the referee was shit or useless, or they ruined the game, or they cost us the game, as their first response. It's a sentiment which, like, is just poor coaching, I think. And if the referee's call lost you the game and that's your excuse, then it's a week out in my head. That should be the last thing. But if a coach comes hard with that, like says to the boys, that's on the referee, or gets into the referee publicly, then it filters down to the players and they start using that as a cop-out rather than let's turn up on Monday and fix all the mistakes we made and just get better at the things we wanted to get to. And I think it's that small tweak from a coaching point of view which has bigger impact. You don't blame someone for a loss. You look at yourselves. You go yourself first. Would you think that's a good sentiment?
Mate, it sounds good on paper. As a referee, I get it, but I do agree. When you take it back on a Monday or Tuesday and then sort of say, well, we've got this referee this week and he stuffed us up 9 years ago, that's the difference. I think, as you rightly know, it's part of our game. It's always been part of the game. But when you're and you drag the hangover into a team environment, and you can feel it when I was refereeing, and there'd be a first penalty, you go, oh, here we go, and you could already see, oh, obviously this coach has bloody told them that I'm a useless prick, and that's it. So yeah, again, it's a tough balance, mate. And being part of the playing side where I was horrendous to referees, and I apologise to everyone, to then ref and now to coach, it's hard not to. Yeah, and that's the beauty of our game, isn't it, as well? But you're right, with young kids, mate, we want young kids reffing. We want them to enjoy it, and we need them. That's the big thing about it. We need them out there.
We do. Well, that was kind of the other thing we did, which I just think is like a good thing to say here, is that we actually I had to talk to a group of parents around the behaviours that you say to your kids in the car on the way home from your thing. These referees are just young kids themselves, so before you instill in your children that the ref was terrible, just remember that they're kids as well, learning their craft. So if we could avoid, disparaging remarks about referees to your young players, it goes a long way just to changing some of that mindset coming through. Anyway, we'll see how it goes, mate. We'll see if in years to come, Jacko, that
better stop that, mate, because every referee's probably saying that I'm not doing exactly what I'm saying here.
Well, may be the case, mate, but we'll just see. So, Jacko, it's come to that time where we asked, mate, your reflections are awesome, mate, around from playing to coaching to refereeing to coaching, and mate, you've seen a lot. So, I'd like to ask this question of you to round out the show: is, do you have anything over your experience that you believe about culture, that you believe in, that you reckon your peers and contemporaries would disagree with?
Yeah, like I said, you hear a lot about culture, and that's, I think, winning in professional sport creates helps create culture. So, it's a lot of, every coach now has this ability and wonderful platform through either listening to you or podcasts or reading that you can form a culture and get the great growth and all that. And that, I think, just winning and losing in professional sport creates that little gap between how you're going. And that's unfair, because I think, you can have a great culture. Like I said, I think we've got a great culture. But if you're not winning, then the outside pressures come in, can affect it all the time. So I'm not sure if every coach would believe that. So I think that's something that I've been down around, no matter what sport, either playing, reffing, or coaching now, that the W helps everything. And you can go a long way to try and help that. There's no doubt about it. If you've got culture completely wrong, you're never going to do it. But there's plenty of great cultures out there, and I think Rob Penny's an amazing coach. He was brilliant with me when we played the Crusaders. And how does it change from that one year to them winning? I don't think he changed the culture of what he did, but he won. So now Crusader culture's back, right? I'm sure we've probably heard that. And Rob Penny's an outstanding coach with a great team, and he had a few injuries the first year, kept a pretty healthy team the second year and wins. So that's probably one of the major cultures thing around me is around, we're all striving to get that great high performance culture. Unfortunately, the sad thing is it depends on the win-loss record of how you actually go.
Yeah. And I guess it depends on the expectations around the win-loss thing too, right? Like in a place like yours where the expectations are high, it's even probably more important you have to tick a few of those W's off, right?
Yeah, and we're not trying to hide away from it. It's our third year. Like, geez, how did we make 2 quarters already? That's tough to do in Super Rugby. Yet we want to keep going and we want to win. And that's the beauty of being here. If you weren't here in this great country and this rugby bloody, they're just so hungry for rugby. Like I said, we talked to Boffy about dropping 1,000 balls, 100 balls so far, and another 1,000 into this community. I've never seen kids want rugby balls so badly, and that's just the beautiful thing about being in this island, the privilege of being here, and forever thankful that the opportunity came that I was able to help and coach Fijian rugby players.
Well, mate, I just want to mention that because that was a great initiative from both the Rebel Sport crew and the Silver Fern brand to donate a whole lot of balls to rugby in Fiji. And just to explain it, then you just essentially opened up the back of the ute and kids came from everywhere, grabbed a ball, and this is for the betterment of the game because not everyone there has a ball, right? They're playing with all sorts of stuff.
No, that's right, mate. And like you said, it was amazing effort from those two to come over. Unfortunately, 1,000 balls got caught in customs, so they actually brought 100 balls over, and the three of us were pumping mad on Saturday morning, and it was 30 degrees. And if you see the two big men plus myself, we're not in the greatest shapes, and we lost about 30 kilos between us. But it was all worth it to have a couple of carvers and watch a great game of Nandi versus Bar, and then halftime to think how we're going to get these balls out, and there was no need to worry about it. The kids came from everywhere, and it's a shame we didn't have all 1,000 because that would have been something special. But then to walk out and see three young kids passing a ball to each other and with smiles on their faces, and they know they've got a rugby ball now to learn and get their trade right of playing rugby and hopefully play for the Drua and the national team is what it's all about. So, yeah, great initiative from those two.
Well, I love it, mate. I think it's so cool that big companies come out and support the grassroots like that. It's an absolute pleasure. It's part of the bigger values of this game and why people like that are doing great things for it. It's awesome. Glen Jackson, mate, before we finish this show today, I'd just like to go over my sort of three big takeaways that I got from you from this conversation today. Number one, the culture of leading yourselves. I love this, that you talked about each player being a leader of themselves, and I think that personal responsibility sometimes makes a really big difference to the overall collective. You also mentioned the importance of just understanding where everyone's at. Not everybody actually even knows what responsibility looks like. Some people haven't even been on a plane before and to know how to act in those situations. So as a coach, our job is to actually help players lead themselves better, and I think it's a good one for all coaches to know at every level. Number two, I loved how you talked about one of your frameworks on your pillars of togetherness, investment, memories, enthusiasm, the memories aspect, and about creating memories all the time, every day, every interaction. And I just think it's a lovely thing to just remember, whether you're coaching, whether you're parenting, whether you're leading anything, is that if you're trying to create memories in everything you do, you're actually going a long way to actually doing great things. And I think it's a lovely concept. Number three, you talked about if you truly want to help someone and they can feel that, that's where the real power is. It's that ability for people to feel how much you care. And you talked about shaking hands, greeting people every day, making them feel like you're invested in them and helping them to grow. You said your definition of culture is an environment where people can grow to their full potential. And if they can feel that you're invested in that growth and that you truly care and want to help, then they're all aboard with everything you say. Glen Jackson, what a pleasure to have you on the Coaching Culture podcast with me today.
Thanks, Ben. Keep up a great show, mate. Love it.